I know from my own personal experience, when we kind of switched from following gold in 2021 to starting to cover Bitcoin, it was like Bob Dylan suddenly going electric, right? The traditionalists in the crowd and those folks who are into gold thought it was an outrage and a betrayal. And so there's a lot of that in this debate. People have a huge affinity for gold. It's certainly got a long track record. Frank Giustra does a good job in talking about the track record of gold, that he says it's universality, which is very appealing. It's accepted all over the world. And I think he wants to enter this debate almost, as he says, I'm willing to switch camps. I'm willing to go long Bitcoin, convince me. Tell me why I should go long Bitcoin. So he's really waving the red flag to the ultimate Bitcoin bull, Michael Saylor. There's two parts to this. There's the actual factual components of this debate. Then there's tactics. And I think tactically, what I'm looking for is Michael Saylor, I think, was going to play a bit of a rope-a-dope tactic on this. He's going to let Frank Giustra kind of punch himself out initially, and then come back later with some more defining arguments that will kind of, I think, put Frank on the defensive. A couple of things that Frank said leading up to this debate that I find curious. He said, quote, I need to have Michael Saylor clarify some things he has said. Alluding to what he believes that Saylor is kind of hiding something. He's not really fully disclosing everything that he should be. And Frank is suggesting that Michael's gone on mostly friendly shows. He hasn't had real questioning from a real critic yet. So he's positioning himself as somebody who has a smoking gun almost. And so that's interesting, Daniela. I'm wondering if he does have a smoking gun, if there are some glaring holes in the Michael Saylor pitch for Bitcoin that we're not aware of, but maybe Frank's coming into this thing with a surprise tactic, a surprise weapon, Daniela. Well, I think with gold, the greatest attack, as Saylor would point out time and time again, is that it's not technology. And we live in a century that's now being completely dominated by technology. And what made Bitcoin great was all of the technology that we've seen for decades developing in the United States finally caught up to money. So money was the last industry, the last entity in the economy that hadn't been completely transformed by software, by technology. It has impacted every other industry in the world. Most companies, and at the end of the day, are software companies. We see this in the auto industry where they can't deliver cars now because they're out of microchips, right? So that's software, that's computer technology. It finally caught up to money itself in 2009 with Bitcoin, and now it's simply taken off from there. Frank, I know, has said that, well, Bitcoin's only 12 years old and we don't have enough of a track record, but that's a bit of a misnomer because Bitcoin builds on 25 years of technology development in the space. The so-called cypherpunks have been working on this for 25 years. Even Henry Ford, speaking of the car industry, talked about having an electricity as money, and he made those comments 100 years ago. So this is not really as new as some think it is. It's the culmination of many decades of work, and then it finally took off in 2009. And like any network technology, it has the potential to go exponential, and that's we're at now, that hockey stick moment where ubiquity kicks in. So I think that Michael Saylor will drive home the point that this is technology, and how technology is the centerpiece of the global economy, and how technology is now transforming money itself and does a better job than gold in areas like portability, in sending money or sending value on the internet. Obviously, Bitcoin would be better than gold for that purpose. The transaction costs actually in Bitcoin are incredibly cheaper than gold in moving size. If you use move $1 billion worth of gold, Daniela, it's going to cost you at a minimum $30,000-$40,000 to make a move like that from one bank to another. We've seen billion-dollar moves in Bitcoin routinely now costing $5. So that's an incredible cost advantage. So the technology aspect to it, I think, is really going to be a tough nut for Frank to overcome, because it's such an obvious transformative reality that I think that's going to be a tough nut to crack, as I've said.
Now, I'm going to ask you, Max, the high priest of Bitcoin, to find it in the depths of your soul What would be the greatest punch in favor of Frank against Bitcoin?
The greatest outcome for Frank in this debate is going to be a draw. I don't think he has any hope of winning this debate. I think his greatest hope, like Rocky in the original movie, he's going to be fighting to a draw. And that will be seen as a victory to the gold crowd, that we didn't get beaten, but we still remained with our faith in gold intact to some degree. I think the one of the outcomes that we'll see is an on-air conversion of Frank to a Bitcoiner in real time. I think he's really hankering to become a Bitcoiner. He's currently a no-coiner. He keeps saying he wants to own it. He wants to buy it. I think to get a high-profile guy like Michael Saylor to sell him on Bitcoin in real time on your show gives him entree into the Bitcoin community in a very splashy way. He immediately becomes very well known as the guy that Michael Saylor converted live on your show. And as a money manager and a guy who's very successful, as he keeps pointing out, he cannot ignore the price. He cannot ignore the action. He's underperforming against Bitcoin spectacularly now on the 3, 4, 5 year time span, and that can't go on for very long. And you can still able to claim that you are a superior money manager, Daniela.
Yeah, but and I cannot speak for Frank, but he, I would suspect would hone in on when you're talking about the price. Yes, Bitcoin, beats gold, but the issue of volatility and also the issue of regulation will come up.
Yeah, those are two issues that will definitely come up, volatility and regulation. On the volatility issue, when you have an asset that's emerging to compete with gold and it's compounding at 200% a year for more than 10 years, that's the volatility. I'll take that volatility every single day. You can't have an asset move up in the millions of percentage points without volatility. And also with Bitcoin, remember something, this is very important. I'll speak as a Bitcoiner. With fiat money, which we also have to include in this debate to some degree, with fiat money, you've got no volatility, but you're guaranteed to lose purchasing power. That's a guarantee. With Bitcoin, you have some volatility, but you're guaranteed to increase your purchasing power. So what would you rather have? Some volatility and increased purchasing power, or no volatility and a guaranteed loss of purchasing power?